Hello everyone, I'm Shucharita, policy analyst working with the CATS International, a public policy think tank from India. On behalf of CATS International and Friedrich-Ebert-Stiftung, India office, I welcome all of you, the audience and both our podcast speakers to today's session, which is going to be the last podcast of the entire series that we have been doing under the ongoing initiative supported by the FES India office, Evolution Aligning the Just Energy Transition Agenda in the Electric Mobility Ecosystem with the G20 Framework. Uh, we all know that India's EV market is expected to grow at a very rapid pace, and the compound annual growth rate, which has been estimated at 49% between 2022 and 2030, says that India has a very steep target of achieving 30% EV market share by 2030. Now, we all also acknowledge the fact that with this growth of electric mobility space, it is not only going to impact India's economy positively, but also it will bring in significant changes in the on the social and environmental factors as well, which will further be contributing towards our net zero vision of 2070. Therefore, we admit the fact that electric vehicle market has been or is going to be a catalyst, a major catalyst to drive the job creation thing in Indian economy, because the approximate estimation says that it will create almost 5 million direct and indirect job opportunities by the end of the next decade. So we feel that this is the right time to talk about the challenges that exist in this space, electric mobility space in Indian context, and start identifying that what could be a probable strategic roadmap to address few of such concerns or challenges. With this brief background, let me also introduce our participants for today. We are glad to have Mr. Jaideep Mukherjee, who's the co-founder of Snappy Cabs, and we also have Mr. Yuvraj Sarda, who's the head eMob Solutions from Volvo Construction Equipments. Now, both our podcast speakers have had a rich background in the electric mobility space as entrepreneurs in working across different startups. So let me start with a very basic question. The green mobility sector, we all know, is witnessing a transformative change as the startups and entrepreneurs are driving the development of a sustainable transportation solutions. But of course, this sector is not void of challenges. Therefore, my first question will be to both of you that what are the major challenges that you identify, and what, according to you, are going to be some solutions to those identified challenges? If I may start with you, Mr. Mukherjee, over to you.
Yeah, thanks, Sucharita, and good afternoon to all of you, and good afternoon to you, Raj, also. I think you have asked a very definitive and a very, I would say, pertinent question in this regard. See, first of all, let me start by saying e-mobility is even you consider to be a startup or not a startup, it's a very serious type of a business. Okay, this is not a startup where you start building a concept or you start building an idea and then start getting rolling into it and then say, okay, here is a business plan and this is how I intend to do it. There's an extremely technical and capital intensive and infrastructure oriented business. And there are multiple challenges when we use the word infrastructure, particularly taking India into perspective. Having said that, since I have spent a lot of time globally and internationally, and then when you relate it back into India, India always faced this challenge of creating infrastructure. Now, with the hyper growth that's happening in the country, with the infrastructure being built up in a very rapid space, on top of it, you have this green mobility and the challenges and the net zero goals that we need to achieve. So there are a couple of challenges we perceive after spending around 1.5 years of running end-to-end EV services in the city of Calcutta. Kolkata, what we get to see is that I think from a policy perspective, there are a lot of good definitive work or set of standards that have come out. But when it comes to execution of those policies, I think there is still a gap. And I'll tell you a couple of examples towards that. We all know that electric vehicles require electricity end of the day to get the vehicles charged. Now, while we talk about green power, when we talk about zeroing in on pollution and all that, one thing on the other side is we are burning more fossil fuel to generate that electricity and getting the vehicles charged up. So I think that's one area we need to relook at from a policy perspective very, very aggressively. That's point number one. How do we leverage the non-fossil fuel energies, be it wind, be it solar, and try and see how we can do that? That's an area. I'll discuss in details probably as we move along in the journey. Second thing is uh, the the nature of the investment that's required to pump in the vehicles as well as the infrastructure for the charging. Those I think are still not well understood within our ecosystem. And again, as I said, probably I'll give better examples as we proceed on the journey today. But my couple of takes on this is I think from a policy framework, it's evolving. Uh, there's a lot of gap between the cup and the lip, what we call it, because when you actually put an infrastructure in the place and once you start running the vehicles, what I felt was that the books or the theories that probably we would have probably learned over a period of time needs to be thrown out of the window because the reality is completely different. You decide a policy where Discom needs to provide you something, but the Discoms comes back and says they're not aware of it. There is still a lot of understanding issue in the market when you talk about fast charging, slow charging, the technologies involved in charging, I mean, you name it. So I think overall we are on the right track, but I think what needs to be done is we need to be slightly more practical when we are talking about implementing EV solution, both in terms of the vehicles and in terms of the infrastructure. I'm very pragmatic and I'm very optimistic that the government across India and the organizations responsible for rolling this out have started talking to people like us and taking the feedback, and they are being actively considered and taken on the plate. Organizations like yours and organizations parallel to yours are also in touch with us, understand what's happening on the ground level. I think that's a very effective step in the right direction, which is going to help us in terms of probably clearing up some of those small issues which are probably hindering growth today. So that's in nutshell about it. In terms of specific, let me answer that later. You are on mute.
You're on mute, Sucharita.
Yeah, thank you so much, Mr. Mukherjee, for your initial comments and pointing out what are the major challenges in this space, especially the gap between conceptualizing things and implementing or execution of those action plans on ground. Um, Coming to you, Mr. Sarda, if you can elaborate a bit, what is your take on the challenges or the major concerns that the startups or the entrepreneurs face?
Sure. So I think Jaideep very well captured a lot of challenges which are very common. I my thought as well. But I would like to kind of bring the attention to two more aspects. One is the consumer aspect. As a country, not very far, maybe just a couple of years back, the per capita car ownership of our country was standing at somewhere close to 50 cars per every 1,000 people, right? Versus you can say West or say United States, where the number is in the 900s per thousand. So as a country, as a consumer economy, we ourselves are evolving. We are having more people as the first time car buyers. More people are becoming are coming into the middle class, into the affluent class. More and more people are getting knowledgeable about world issues, about global warming as a concept. So while this is happening, but what is the point I'm trying to share is that from the base where we are starting, that awareness has been very low, right? And that is why there is no intrinsic, and I'm talking about, when I say no, I'm talking about at a mass scale. At a mass scale, there is no intrinsic motivation to buy electric. As a startup founder or as an entrepreneur in this space, you really have to fight for a value proposition. You cannot sell green. You have to fight and come up with a value proposition which is giving more things beyond green. Of course, green is a benefit which people would kind of consider, but you have to also have some more tangible benefits that are relevant to the customer. So all the solutions that have come in today are actually adding that value. And it is not that, okay, I'm selling you green, just buy it. It is that somebody is adding a more convenient way of commuting. Somebody is offering a more fun way of driving. Somebody is offering a more cost effective way of transporting. So all those value propositions are actually making electric succeed. And which is not easy. Which is not easy in a country like India, which is very value conscious, where we are, for us, the priorities are not to have an electric car first at home, but the priority is to find, you know, the things which are really, really important for us for our sustenance. So from that point of view, offering these kind of solutions become more tough, and Indian startup entrepreneurs are doing different ways of technologies. They're coming up with innovation in business model to make their solution stand out and be seen as the one which is the most lucrative solution. Second challenge that I see is on the financing or funding part of this ecosystem. And again, the obvious comparison I would like to do here is with the West, whether it is Europe or US, where funding is more liberally available, both from the government sector and the private sector, to these kind of initiatives and to these kind of startups. Whereas again, here in India, there is a tough chase in convincing investors for a very sustainable value proposition, which is in the form of a business that is getting developed with high returns that somebody is expecting in terms of growth and reach. So funding is another challenge which startup entrepreneurs are facing, although electric has received a lot of hype. But if you look at the impact of funding winter globally, it has impacted funding of a lot of electric vehicle startups in India, especially when startups are looking to go for a bigger ticket in their Series Bs and Series Cs and the Series Ds. Those rounds, it is not very easy to get that kind of big ticket investment for fueling the growth of a promising startup which has proven its business case. So these two challenges are still haunting the Indian startup ecosystem, especially in the electromobility space, which is not letting letting the landscape change like how it has changed for e-commerce very quickly. From 2014 to 2020, you see how the e-commerce landscape changed. Whereas the same startups or similar startups have been there in the electromobility ecosystem since 2017, and it is 2023. But have things changed drastically? Probably not. The third challenge, in fact, I would like to add one more here, is on the skill set of manpower. As Jaideep mentioned, it's a very, very technically complex area where you are actually managing multiple systems, mechanical, electrical, software, electronics, mechatronics, AI. There are multiple technologies which are into the play when an electromobility solution is deployed. Now, having those different skill sets of people who understand the system as well. Being an electrical engineer is not enough. Being an electrical engineer who understands the implication of electrical engineering in the context of electric vehicle is is important, which is missing, because in this space, I think for between 2001 and 2017, 18 times, there were not more than 5,000 people working in this space. And now suddenly you need 500,000 people to support this industry. So there is obviously a lot of people who've shifted industries, a lot of people who've upskilled themselves, a lot of people who've learned these things. But still, that expertise to drive the industry forward requires some more meat there. So I felt beyond what Jaideep mentioned, these are the three challenges which are on the other side of the ecosystem. So I think that these are my initial remarks.
Yeah, very vital points you mentioned, especially the consumer-centric approach. Why would a consumer choose electric vehicle and not an ICE vehicle is something that we should look at, something what lies beyond the environmental benefits. Uh, so both of you talked about technology and innovation. So my second question will be in that context. So with the Atmanirbhar Bharat mission of the government of India, a lot of emphasis is being given on the indigenization of manufacturing process of electric vehicle within India, which also mean that we have kind of stopped outsourcing a part of the manufacturing process, meaning or indicating that a lot of job is also going to be created in this space. But indigenization also talks about innovation and technology that plays a very crucial role in driving the entire development of sustainable and affordable solutions in the mobility space. So, how do you think the startups and entrepreneurs are leveraging technology and innovation to develop those kind of affordable solutions for the public uh, in India, both in terms of owning a vehicle and also as offering in terms of offering a public transportation system which is electric vehicle driven. So if I may ask you first, Yuvraj.
Sure. See, I think the Indian landscape itself, the diversity that we have in our country, and the geographic, you can say, difference that we have, the climatic difference that we have, itself causes enough challenges that you cannot offer a standard solution here. Your solution needs to have that kind of an innovation about meeting the operating requirement of different regions. Let's take example of batteries. Batteries are commodities. In China, you get it like in plenty of different style and whatever you want. It's a commodity in China. But can those batteries work as is in India? The answer is no. You would have heard about battery fires last year. That was a clear case of using existing technology from China and doing it in a haphazard manner and offering them to Indian users. When the temperatures hit 45 degrees in Hyderabad, you saw battery fires, right? When the things went bad in Gurgaon, you saw battery fires. So as a technologist, as an entrepreneur, as an innovator, I have to solve for making the electromobility technology more robust and reliable for the Indian operating condition, which are Indian operating conditions are probably the toughest in the world because we experience different climates from Kashmir to Kanyakumari, and we are abusive users of automotive. I mean, the reality is when you really see how a three-wheeler driver uses the vehicle, for his daily earning and usage, that is the reality of our country. So how do we make more robust solutions which can withstand all these abusive and intense operating conditions is one. Second, the value consciousness, which I mentioned in my previous point, itself calls for innovation, because customers say, I can't buy this because it is not cheaper than CNG. I can't buy this because it is not as powerful as my diesel car. So, how do we overcome this and offer them a value proposition which makes them buy this? So, you have business model innovation. When there are concepts like battery swapping, you are separating batteries from vehicle, offering vehicle without batteries so that the upfront cost goes down, and offering battery as a service, which reduces any concerns around battery, because which is an unknown or a new topic for Indian customers. Then you have, you know, uh, mobility as a service model, where the entire electric vehicle is offered on a pay-per-use model. You have how you see how we have innovated. Probably this is never, I have not seen anywhere in the world how we've done our electric bus tenders. It's a pure case of innovation. How we've solved the problem of the, at one side you have STU, state transport undertakings, who have, who are not a very credit worthy institutions. And then on the other hand, you have OEMs who are always keen to sell their product. Now, how do we look at this situation and implement electromobility in a city usage? You offer, electromobility as a service kind of a model. The GCC program is what we call, how we've implemented electric buses in the cities, where pay-per-use model is there. OEM gets to sell their product, they maintain the way they are, the government pays to them as per the contract. There are penalties on either side of uh not following the guidelines. So that's a pure case of how we are innovating. There are several innovations. There's another company called Exponent Energy. They have innovated both on the battery side and on the charger side, and they've modified the battery management system algorithm to make 15-minute charging a norm. So they can charge batteries in 15 minutes. So that's again a case of innovation, of how we have innovated in by leveraging technology to solve an Indian problem. Because we see the problem in India, there are, at some places you don't have chargers, at some places you don't have electrical infrastructure, you don't have time to wait. It's a commercial vehicle, you have to be always ready to serve a customer. All these challenges are actually forcing engineers to rethink technology. They are forcing the businessmen to come up with innovation in business model and solve these problems. Only then, and that's the reason why whatever progress you are seeing in this electromobility field is sheer innovation and hard work done by these startup entrepreneurs, as well as people are involved in this space. Yeah.
Very well articulated. Like, contextualizing the solution as per the demand, as per the climatic condition, as per the location, as per the people's choice. Coming to you, Mr. Mukherjee, the segment that you represent, a lot of your success depends on the business innovation, the business model that you promote. So what is your take on technology and innovation coming from the segment of public usage of electric vehicles?
A couple of, I think, let me take a step back and when our experience is tuned around that. So, when we were looking at launching the services for e-mobility, we identified everybody was trying to look at a problem statement which is coming in from the consumer side. And the entire direction, when you start pointing fingers, is everybody was blaming, look at that driver. Okay. We took a completely different stand and we wanted to figure out why is that driver creating that problem and what's the problem which is leading that driver to create into that. And we figured out a very unique problem to that statement, that it's more to do with socio-economic, it's more to do with the currently the way businesses are being run, it's more to do with the current policies that are being in place, be it from the aggregator or from the government. and we wanted to eliminate that, right? So what we did was, instead of working on the consumer front, we worked our entire strategy and innovation was around the drivers. So what we call our driver partners are the kings. Now we started solving their problems. Once that problem got solved, 99% of the consumer problem got solved automatically. Believe me, so we instead of solving 99% of the consumer problem, we solved the major problem which is from coming in from our driver partners. So that's one. Second thing, one of the major constraints which we faced when we launched or we looked at the market was EV. When you are launching an EV, better to go in for a kind of a, I would say, a scheduled ride, okay? Because really don't know what's the kind of charge that the vehicle is there, whether the vehicle will be able to accommodate and travel for a particular distance. So what you do is you plan your ride and do a booking, and then accordingly I will plan and I will send you my vehicle. That was the advice that was given by most of these consultants or people that we have been talking about. And we were very clear. We wanted an innovation around that. And we said we will launch on-demand services for EV, which was still not unheard of and in those days. Because today what you get to our services is an on-demand service. You don't have to wait. Yes, you can do definitely have a booking facility for this scheduled booking, but we wanted to have an on-demand kind of a solution available for EVs. That's through technological innovation we solved it. So we went ahead and, as Yuvraj was talking about the complexity of the technology, we built a solution around integrating couple of key parameters to figure how to do that, and we solved that. The second part was there were certain critical areas in terms of surge pricing, in terms of cancellations, from a consumer perspective, where we faced and we interacted and we figured out that this can be all looked at from a technology. Partners can either be benefited or they can be penalized if you start canceling rides. And why one not they cancel? Because the vehicles are owned by us. But then it's very easy to say, but then how do you monitor this whole thing? So again, technology came into the play. We implemented technology allowed to cancel. Let me put it very simply. He's not allowed to cancel a ride until and unless there are very specific parameters which he gets into it. Again, managed automatically through a technological innovation. So that's where technology came into the play. The other big technology that we are trying to work towards is, I would say, it's a benefit of what we are trying to do. We have created certain infrastructure which is currently available to be used more or less for a captive for our own fleets, right, in the city of Calcutta. Now, how do we extend that facility for people like the common people of Kolkata and for the corporates and for that matter, any organization where today, as Yuvraj was talking, and acquiring or acquisition of an electric vehicle is phenomenally high, if not 50 to 60% or more than that, higher than compared to an ICE vehicle. And then if your standard drive per day is around 40 to 50 kilometers, it doesn't make a business sense for you to buy an EV because the cost of recovering that extra capital charged at home, then you need at least 3.3 to 7.4 kilowatt of extra power. So that means these are certain areas where we see people are also not very proactive in terms of people who are educated. Here, the word educated. So those people, we figured out that they are not willing to take a step out and buy an EV. However, one of the problems that we wanted to solve was that why not make this investment that we have already made in the charging domain be available for people like all of you, or for common people like us, taking the co-founder tag away. And if I wanted to buy an EV, and if I have a solution which is very standard, So which gives me a dual kind of a solution. So my utilization at that infrastructure goes up, and the cost of utilizing the infrastructure by a common person reduces drastically in terms of getting more EV guys on the board. Now, to do that, one challenge that what we are facing is then when do you keep this open? How do you optimize the use of those? So again, technology comes into the play. So probably I'm happy probably to just announce that probably coming next month or starting December, you will see that all our infrastructure that's being built or is available in Calcutta with this innovation would be available for all private people, including anybody and everybody. So we are encouraging the mass to get into this drive with us to get EVs, and not necessarily four-wheelers. It can be even a cycle. It can be even a two-wheeler or a three-wheeler, except the buses, because those are mighty elephants. But again, we are working with the government to see if there can be a possibility, but I think that's not going to happen. So innovation does play a big role. With innovation, we have learned a lot over the last 1 year. So I think we are also talking about bringing in certain more challenges, certain more changes in the way we interact with our customers, in the way we interact with our partners, the way we interact with our OEMs. So that's where we are bringing in some new approach. Some great work is being done at backend by our technical team. And we plan to roll out those solutions, which will be much more customer friendly, much more, I would say, up to date in terms of industry standards. And that's what we have been striving for. But overall, I think technology, as I told the starting of my discussion, that this is not just an automobile industry. This is a culmination of automotive, Internet of Things, AI, you can name it. Everything comes into the picture. Then I think the future lies is the aim for all of us who are in this business is to stop using coal-fired electricity in charging our EV battery. And by the way, create a battery is also quite pollution. It's a huge activity in terms of creating pollution. So when you start creating your lithium-ion batteries, I think all of us in this forum would agree that that's again a big deal. So we should be looking at how judiciously we need to use this on one side while we are saving. And this is something which we learned when we started to get into this carbon credits concept, and we talked to international organizations. In that effort, we have a partner called Hige Energy of Canada. We are working very closely with them in terms of the use of solar. And some pilots are also going on. I think that's the way forward, going forward. The end-to-end 360-degree cycle has to be completely clean. And that's where I think technology will be playing a major role going forward.
Brilliant. And congratulations and all the very best for your new initiative that is about to come in next few weeks. And thanks for being the trendsetter. I'm sure this particular step of yours will help a lot many stakeholders to come forward and have businesses in this space. So with technology and innovation, we have spoken about technology and innovation. Let's move on to the next very crucial element in this space, that is gender inclusivity. So how do you think gender aspect is being addressed in the e-mobility space as compared to the traditional or conventional automobile sector, which has been predominantly male-dominated segment of business? So if I may ask Mr. Mukherjee first and then Yuvraj.
I think that is very something fantastic, and I think very close to our heart. So let me take the opportunity to announce that probably we are the one of the first mobility companies in India where the corporate mandate is to have at least 35% of our workforce, which includes driver partners, to be female drivers. Okay. We already have launched these services. The entire majority of our airport services are run by female drivers. We work with an NGO in this context, and we are creating a state-of-the-art exclusive training center for only for females in this effect, which is going to be inaugurated by the Chief Minister next month in Calcutta. Other than that, let me tell you what we have done to focus on this mobility sector, not only from a gender perspective, but on overall skill development. I heard Yuvraj talking a big thing on skill, and I think he's absolutely right. So what we have been doing is we have identified a certain area and three different areas, at least in our line of business. One is the driver partner, the second is the charging infrastructure, and third is the basic maintenance activities. We have created a common program which has now been approved and accredited by the technical education by the government of India as well as the government of West Bengal. They have been converted into full-fledged programs and courses where the participants will get compensated if they participate in that program. We are giving 100% commitment in terms of generating employment, in terms of conversion, and taking them on board into our organization. So, which otherwise creates a supply line for us. So definitely there is an interest for us. But however, we are committing employment in that fashion. Second thing is the first 250 participants in each one of these programs, the four programs that I mentioned, is reserved for females. And the first program is going to start from the the 3rd or 4th of November. The programs have just been, and it's available in the public portal now. So that's one of our initiative in terms of looking at that. The third and the another important part is going forward is that we have created a monitoring team at the back end, which takes care of certain internal aspects of the organization, where again, we have been taking a decision that this is an area where we would focus to have, I would not like to use the word just as females, but cutting across genders. Typically, we would like to have people who are coming from the other strata of life also. And we are happy to say that we currently have around 90% of the members of that population coming in from that quarter. So we have taken a big step in that, and I think we would be focusing on that aspect going forward. And we have got the benefits out of it. The responsibility, and believe me, the people who we have chosen have gone through a very, I would say, a rigorous process of changing and a continuous process of training. We have got tremendous support from the Chamber of Commerce and from the industry to that effect. And I continue to hope that we will get such support going forward. Board. And so I think that's something very close to us, and I think anything for that is any suggestions on that would be more than welcome. We would like to look at it.
Uh, Over to you, Yuvraj. What do you think about the gender inclusivity in the mobility?
I feel, if you look at the legacy, and you mentioned about this industry being male dominated, that was also to do something with the nature of core business of automotive, which was very mechanical, and it required a lot of hard work and strength, body strength, and historically, women were seen as weaker compared to men, and whatever is the reason why we had whatever we had. What has happened, with electromobility, because of the kind of technologies that are going into the play, being electrical, software, uh, also, electronics, all these is where you have a very talented women workforce available. If you look at the engineering streams, will have the lowest male to female, whatever, lowest female to male ratio in across engineering, and probably computer science and electronics would have very high uh, strength. So it is also to do with, okay, is the talent available, not available? So in the case of electromobility, the talent is available because it is coming from computer science background, it is coming from electrical background, it is coming from electronics background, and you have a lot of women talent available, and which can be leveraged. And obviously we are now as a country very liberal in terms of offering equal opportunities and and hence the best person in the room gets the job. So we are seeing today, because the startups are looking for talent who can address problems of the technology that is being solved for. And there are many people, many women who are very, very interested in those kind of startups and trying to solve those problems. So we see a lot of women founders. I personally know CEOs and founders of electric vehicle companies, electric two-wheeler companies, three-wheeler companies, battery swapping companies, um, charging infrastructure technology companies. So uh, I think one that the problem that we are trying to solve for, and the educational background, there is a link that is helping this. And second is the whole startup ecosystem. As Jaideep mentioned, what he said, 35% women drivers. We at Volvo Group also have the same ambition, having 35% workforce as women. So the point is that the new age startups are thinking just like, what the ambition wise, what somebody who's kind of done that and learned after 100 years, Volvo Group has now decided that they should have 35%. Not to demean anyone, I'm just saying it's good that it is something which we have learned, and now the same learning is also being adopted by startups right from the beginning. You have so many companies who have been promoting getting women as part of their workforce. Metro Ride is another startup in Bangalore which has women drivers who are running auto rickshaws. So many delivery companies who are offering electric vehicles are also using women drivers. Another technical advantage is that electric vehicles are easier to drive. They don't have gears. So that also makes it easier for women to drive, because generally what we are seeing is women are more comfortable driving or learning vehicles without gears. So there are few cultural and historical aspects I felt which is supporting this narrative. And obviously there is a societal evolution where society is becoming more fair, equitable, more inclusive, and hence we want people from all genders to be part of the workforce. And what we require is their intellectual capital. So it doesn't matter who they are. And that is what you are seeing today. And what we are seeing, we shouldn't be astonished. We should just say that, okay, we have done something which was supposed to be done maybe 50 years back, which we couldn't do as humanity. And now we are able to do it. So I think that is something we have just solved for something which we have not solved earlier. So it's good. It's very good to be having the situation, and we should encourage and continue to encourage this situation to become better and better.
Thank you for bringing the key factors of gender inclusivity in the e-mobility space to the fore. Moving on to the next question, Mr. Mukherjee, you mentioned while mentioning about the support system that exists around you, you mentioned about the role of business associations or the Chamber of Commerce. So how do you see the role of those institutions in the coming days in making this space more structured and giving a better access to the entrepreneurs and startups, access to finance, access to better technology innovation, access to market, access to your consumers? How do you perceive the role of business associations evolving in this space?
See, I would like to make it very simple. I come in from a corporate background myself, after spending 30 years in the corporate world. So there are certain inherent benefits which this industry bodies carries, right? Now, first and foremost is it's an association where you get to get the entire community or the entire who's who of the industry on one side, and quote unquote is the decision makers, right? Second thing is most of this industry associations does have some influence on the government policy making in some form or the other. Now, as an individual startup player, however good, bad, ugly you are, you have your own limitations. And then you are driving your own business, so you have a time constraint. So what I figured out was good, at least in Calcutta and at least in Delhi. We started interacting with the national industry associations, and you know the names. Not going to take their names on this platform. So what happened was we took the initiative of getting the industry associations updated on the ground realities. First, the industry association themselves, the office bearers, I would like to put it that way. Okay. So that helped us in clearing a lot of doubts that we figured out that it is existed within that particular community. So while the name EV was more of a fancy to them, the concept of sustainability, that if I drive an EV vehicle, I'll be sustainable, those misconceptions we needed to clear. Second thing is why an EV vehicle costed me more? Why should I pay more? Why shouldn't I pay less? So I think there were a lot of initial clarifications which we felt that if the industry associations are not clear, how on earth will they pass on that message to the member committees or the members that they have? That's the first thing that I think that we took that initiative and we got a fantastic result out of it. Second was the platform that was provided by these industry bodies, where we could reach out to the industry as such. I'm talking about the traditional industry, not the ones which are the new dimensionals like the IT industry or the services or the e-commerce industry. I'm not talking about them, but large traditional FMCG organizations, manufacturing organizations, heavy engineering industries, where they have been actually struggling to get an information. So we got all of them into one single board, which the industry associations were able to do. And we were able to address them in a focused discussions and clarify their doubts on EV. Now, this was not done with an intention to get more business out of it. The intention was, as Yuvraj was talking about, that the knowledge or the awareness about how an EV works, how it's going to help you, how probably it's going to help our kids or our grandsons going forward, rather than helping you and me directly at this point of time. We were able to do that, and we continue to do that even today. And now we have taken another initiative. We are now taking this to the schools and colleges. Okay. Because what we feel is that this is something which should be part and parcel of our curriculum. Okay. Not just sitting down on a room and talking about an EV or so maybe accounting and stuff like that. This should be part and parcel of the academia and stuff like that. Formally, but what we felt was, with our ground knowledge and with the working with the industry, now we have been invited by the governments, as I was giving you an example earlier, that we are now being called by the government when they are trying to formulate a policy, actually ask us that will this work? Do you think this is feasible? Do you think the subsidies that we are talking about is required in this? So let me tell you, a lot of subsidies that the government is asking for or trying to project is not required by us. We require subsidies on completely something else, which the government has not even thought about. We went and we approached the government and we gave them a live presentations. We took the government delegations to some of the infrastructure that we built, and they got a shock of their lives because they said, this is something which we are not aware of. Oh, does it work this way? This is how it requires. Let me give you an example. In fast charging, there are two technologies, something called GB by T and something called CCS type 2. Would you believe that nobody in the government, they're not even aware that what is GB by T and what is CCS type 2? Now, if you don't know, and if you don't know the cost associated with that and the power consumption associated with that, how on earth will you create a policy around it, right? So these are some of the changes that we would like to look. Second thing is, with invention or with technology bandwidth, what happens is, power is a limited commodity today. Well, in Bengal, limited power, how you can still manage how that impact is not there on the grid. Okay, because tomorrow, say for example, in a particular location, you have 50 houses, and all 50 houses starts buying an EV and put their EV, plug it into the system. Do you know the consequences of that? That's going to be impacting on that local grid. It will be disastrous, right? Now, these are things which we have started talking, and people have now taken into the consumption pattern in some of our hubs and trying to forecast that, okay, if this area is getting into this kind of a situation, okay, let me think about it, what might happen in Gulf Green or what might happen in South City. Means talks are going on in that fashion. So I think industry organizations and particularly the organizations like us, we need to work much more closely because it brings in a lot of value proposition not only from the industry perspective but also from our side, because we are not expected to run to each and every door to do this job, but at the same time we would love to do that. But then where do you get this platform? The industry body gives us that platform, and industry body takes this message to the government, and government takes the help from us. So I think I look at it from that angle. It's a give and take.
True, true. Yuvraj, your take on this?
So I just want to understand that question again, Sucharita. This is on industry bodies' role. Yes.
Yeah, the business associations or the Chamber of Commerce who act as the intermediaries between the business houses or the startups or entrepreneurs and the government on the other side.
Yeah. See, I kind of very much agree to what Jaideep said. I think in this industry, they play a very, very important role. Uh, One is in terms of making government aware of what is the development happening on the technology side and what are the real challenges of the startups or the companies which are into the business in this. Sometimes there are perceptions about what is the challenge and what should be my role as a supporting agency from the government point of view. But the reality could be different. Some of the problems are already solved for by the technologists and the business managers. On the side, who are actually doing a business. Today are representing the rights and the issues of our industry to the government. There are so many, some of them are formal like SMEV or CM in the automotive side, which has been representing to Department of Heavy Industries for what should be the policy, how FAME 2 should be, how FAME 3 should be, etc. And then there are some informal like IESA, which is another informal association, which is also hearing inputs from industry and sharing to the government on certain policy aspects. And then there are aspects which are uh, at state level. So it is also important that these agencies are also representing to the state authorities through their regional offices and trying to bring in those topics. And then there are certain associations which are cutting across CIIs, FICCIs, associations of the world, which are actually bringing electromobility as a small part of the larger energy transition paradigm which our country is going through. So, you know, I think this industry has actually leveraged these associations, and these associations also have actually looked at the fact this is a new and emerging area, and I think there should be a role that needs to be played in terms of knowledge dissemination, in terms of policy advocacy, in terms of collaboration between two companies or peers. Uh, and that role is very well played so far. And it continues to be played by different agencies who are working very closely with, different companies or with government stakeholders. And see, for government to take quick action to create policies, there may be a very valid input which is coming from one private company, but can government take that as an input? The answer is no. Probably they would want such an input to come from an industry body, which kind of reflects it as a industry voice rather than a single company voice. So that's why you have, even agencies like IBSA, India Battery Swapping Alliance. That is also because battery swapping as a niche concept had very limited companies who would talk about it. But the moment you form these associations and also the way these associations are playing role, they are helping the government accelerate their policy implementation and also create good platform for government and industry to come and interact. So I feel their role is critical and they should continue to play the role that they are playing today.
Great. So connecting the dots and coming to the last question of this session, if I may ask both my podcast guests to identify just two key features that you would like to see in the EV policy. Now, looking at the Indian context, we know the states, several states have come up with, are coming, trying to come up with their own EV policies. Now, keeping in mind all those EV policies and their unique features, not so unique features, what are the two key things that you would like to see in an EV policy, irrespective of the state which is coming up with its policy? So, if I may ask Mr. Mukherjee first to identify two such things that you would definitely want to be the part of an EV policy in the Indian context, and then over to you, Yuvraj, and I would request for four different components that we
Yeah,
may learn.
definitely. So I will probably come back with 2 parts, which is something that we are actively pursuing with the government and trying to figure it out. One is a policy around electricity, which and I'll take some time to explain that. See, getting a electricity at a subsidized rate is not the ask. Now, let me tell you, when we are setting up a charging infrastructure, we are talking about an electricity requirement of anything between 750 kilowatt to 1.5 to 2 megawatts. Now, when you identify that and when you try to get that power from a discom, there are a couple of challenges that comes in as it weighs. Okay, so one is that the cost for acquiring that electrical connection is tremendous high. Okay. And along with that, the connection charges and the security deposit. So that takes away around 50% of the total investment that's required for that particular site. Just to give you an idea, anything between 1.5 to 2.5 crores is actually being handed over to the discom as a security deposit to get that kind of an electricity, which otherwise could have, because anyway you are building rest of the infrastructure. Now, what you are paying for that is basically somebody is getting you that electricity to your location, and from that location, it is all infrastructure cost is yours. The transformer is yours, the connectivity thereafter is yours, the VCP, RMU, everything is yours, right? So anyway, you are investing on top of that. So that's one where we feel that instead of giving electricity at 6 rupees or 7 rupees, I think you charge 9 rupees or 10 rupees, the standard rate. But look at the investment that's required in terms of that money that you are blocking to work. So electricity policy. So I will not probably take this example as a policy, but just to give you an explanation. So policy around electricity and creating of infrastructure should be relooked at, because that's not something that is very, very attractive at this point of time, pan India, not only in Bengal. The second is I will borrow it from Yuvraj, and probably that's an area where we are very actively working, and I know where it leads us, is the funding. Now, today, let me tell you, we are working closely with some of these global funds, and I'll give you an example of how this whole thing is not working in India. Now, if you are getting a fund from the Europe or for the multilateral agencies like the World Bank or the ADBs of the world or some institutions from Singapore, they are willing to give this fund to you at say 3% or 4%. Now, for all strategic purposes, this doesn't land in your basket at 3 to 4%. It comes to some agency within India. Then it goes to some another agency, and then it goes via 3 or 4 medium and then ultimately lands at your bucket at 14 to 15%. So the cost of borrowing, which is at 4%, you are somebody in the whole ball game is getting into all of this. And the green fund, the so-called green fund that's coming to you at the end of the day is coming in at 14%, which is not good for the industry, neither helping us to grow. So I think a very, very clear focused strategy, because it's an international fund that is coming in. It is allowing you to grow, and it is allowing for projects like us, or for that matter, any other EV project for that matter, needs to be grown. I think that's where more transparency and policy, and these are two major bottlenecks, because these two, if you are able to bring down the cost of borrowing, and if you are able to bring down the cost of investment where your money is not blocked, I think the industry, whatever speed it is growing, it's going to double up. So these are two major policy decisions I think I would personally like to see. And we hope, we have been lobbying and we have been pushing the government for that. But fingers crossed at this point of time. Let's hope these two gets things done.
We totally understand your concerns and acknowledge that these are two of the major bottlenecks that need to be addressed as soon as as soon as possible. Over to you, Yuvraj. What are the two components that you would like to see in any EV policy?
Sure. No, I think very well brought up by Jaideep, especially on the electrical infrastructure, which has been a pain point for having every piece is sorted out and then going out when you're going to put up a charging station and facing this. I'm able to relate to what he's saying. So see, I feel I will kind of bring up a very new topic. It's sorry to bring this up at the very end of this session, but it is important given you've asked the point on policy. So far, all the focus when I say electric car, or when I say electric vehicle, the only thing that half of the people imagine is an electric car. Maybe some of them imagine electric two-wheeler, some of them electric, bus or electric three-wheeler. But given electric vehicle as a electric, you can say powertrain as a technology is kind of fairly matured in the Indian context, there are so many applications of it. You can deploy the same technology in heavy duty vehicles, which are not talked about and which are also not seen and heard. And if you talk about common man like you and me, we don't even deal with them. While a lot of your goods that are getting delivered at your home are delivered in a heavy duty vehicle, or the kind of things you are using at home are actually done at a mine which is using construction equipment, and you're not aware of it, and so you are related to it but you're not directly seeing that, and that's why it is very easy not to think about it. And that is what has happened when we said we have a national electric vehicle policy. That policy actually covered only very small fraction of the transportation ecosystem, and there is another fraction of the transportation ecosystem which is also significant. Vehicles like trucks, buses for intercity transport. I'm talking about private operator based buses, and off-highway vehicles like tractors or construction equipments. They are all of these, from the technology roadmap point of view, they are all getting electrified. Some company or equipment, some company into tractor is coming up with electric tractor. All these technological solutions are available. Now they need government support to push. The reason also is very, very compelling. All these platforms are used for commercial application. So they are heavily used, and hence the consumption of diesel per day is very high. Consumption of diesel per capita and per day, both, is very high. They are small in volumes, and hence they are easily targetable. They are commercially driven, so it is very easy to influence them. And very quickly, someone can achieve the kind of fuel savings and the kind of carbon emission reduction that you would want. by influencing this. So this sector needs to come as part of FAME 3 is one ask. That FAME 3 needs to be more comprehensive and not just look at two-wheelers, three-wheelers, auto rickshaws. Although they are definitely very low-hanging and big significant part of our ecosystem, but it is also now important to cover the other important, may not be as big, but still important part of the transportation ecosystem. So that is one ask, that going forward, all the policies, whether some states which are now coming up, say Chhattisgarh is planning to come up with their EV policy, they can be comprehensive right from day one. They don't need to go the same way what Karnataka did and what Delhi did, etc. Because now states like Delhi are thinking and are coming up with, oh yeah, this is something we can also impact. So this is one part. Second important initiative that I would like to talk about is conversion, which means retrofitment. So we already have a big fleet of diesel vehicles, petrol vehicles, CNG vehicles across all categories, and we will continue to have them for next few years. In fact, as we are saying, we are also selling as a country more diesel and petrol vehicles than electrics. So we will, until that trend reverses, we should also address that existing fleet or population of vehicles and give that vehicle an opportunity. So allowing and supporting conversions, whether you convert a diesel car into electric, how can we incentivize that retrofit kit? Whether you are converting an CNG auto to electric, how we can incentivize that retrofit kit? And whether it is for buses, trucks, because somebody who's bought a truck has actually bought it for 10 years. If he's bought it in 2023, then there is no way your electric vehicle policy is going to impact the emission caused by that truck. So, but if your electric vehicle policy says, I will allow you and incentivize you to convert this, maybe after 3 years, once the loan is paid for, the person may think that, okay, now it's time, I will invest again into a electric vehicle conversion kit, which will give me long-term savings. But because of the government incentives, there is an additional motivation for me to shift. So conversion or retrofit kit, retrofitment as an area needs to be incentivized. So the two things that, if I have to summarize, that you asked me on incentives, one is make the policy more comprehensive to cover off-highway category, which means trucks, heavy duty, buses, construction equipment, tractors. And second is conversion needs to be incentivized. The retrofitment needs to be incentivized, whether it is for two-wheelers, three-wheelers, cars, buses, trucks, or construction equipment.
Brilliantly put. I am sure that the vital points from the last question, the answers that both of you gave, they're surely paving way for another round of discussion, which I'm sure will happen very soon in another podcast, maybe. So, with this, I mean, we all acknowledge the fact that what it takes to shape the future of e-mobility in India, we know that it is going to be a range of things that need to be taken care of by multiple stakeholders. So we need to address the low-cost financing framework, a robust infrastructure, overall infrastructure. We have to also ensure collaborative efforts amongst central, state, and regional or city authorities, governments, and different stakeholders. So my heartfelt thanks to both our podcast guests to uh, articulating so well about what exactly the role of entrepreneurs and startups is going to be in the entire mobility space. What are the pain areas and how we can probably address some of those challenges. I know it will take more time to delve into deeper conversation about the challenges, the concerns, and a lot of brainstorming amongst the stakeholders, but I'm glad that at least the discussion started today. On behalf of Cuts International, thank both Mr. Mukherjee and Mr. Sarda for your time, for the brilliant ideas and initiatives that you talked about, and so such a well articulated discussions that we had. So thank you so much. I also thank Friedrich-Ebert-Stiftung for supporting this entire initiative. Thank you so much.